Today we're talking about how to solve multi-step equations. So there are three steps to solving multi-step equations. The first step is to make sure that you are distributing if necessary. Step two is to combine like terms. And step three is to solve. So we need to make sure we're following these three steps when we're solving multi-step equations. So we're going to go through some examples just to see what that looks like, and then we'll have you practice on your own. So, for example 1, we're going to go ahead and start with distributing if necessary. There are no parentheses here, so that means that we don't have to distribute on this one. We can go straight to step 2. Step 2 is to combine like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my highlighter tool, and I'm going to select all of my like terms. So all my x terms, I'll highlight in yellow, and remember you got to include that symbol in front of your terms. And then all my constants will be in pink. Okay, I'm not going to highlight this negative 20 because it's all by itself on this side, so I don't need to combine that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to combine my like terms. So I have 9x minus 7x, and I know that that is equal to 2x. And then I have a positive 1 minus 5. I know that 1 minus 5 is a negative 4. I'm going to bring down the negative 20. So now I can go ahead and solve. This is a two-step equation at this point, which is something you should be familiar with. But with two-step equations, remember the first thing you want to do is you're kind of doing the order of operations backwards at this point. So instead of doing multiplication division first, like we would when we normally solve expressions with replacement values, we want to make sure that we are doing this backwards. So we're going to get rid of any addition and subtraction first, and then we want to get rid of the multiplication division. So right now we have a minus 4, so we want to get rid of that first. And whenever you're solving a two-step equation, you need to make sure that you are doing whatever you do on one side, you do to the other side as well. So if I'm going to get rid of the minus 4, I'm trying to make that equal to 0. And to get rid of a minus 4, I need to add 4 to it to make it 0. So if I add 4 here, I need to keep it the same on the other side. I'm going to add 4 over here as well. So then I have 2x equals, this gets canceled out, a negative 20 plus 4, which is a negative 16. At this point, I can go ahead and get rid of my multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 2, and I get x equals negative 8. So my answer is written in this format. Okay, so x equals negative 8 is my answer. Let's try number 2. Number 2 has some parentheses in it. So we need to make sure that we are distributing first in this case. So let's go ahead and distribute. So we're going to pass that negative 7 to both parts. I want that to multiply by that 3 and by this negative 1. So negative 7 times 3 is a negative 21. And I'm going to make sure that I am bringing everything down with me. I'm not just focusing on one part. When you're showing your work, you need to make sure you're bringing the entire equation down. You're not just doing parts of it and trying to piece it all together. It needs to all stay together like I'm showing you right now. Okay, so negative 7 times 3a is a negative 21a, and then a negative 7 times a negative 1 is going to give me a positive 7. So now I can go ahead and step 2 is to combine like terms. I don't have any like terms here that I can combine. I've got my plus 7, and I've got my negative 21a. Neither of those have anything else to combine with, so we're good. Step 3 is to solve. So again, we're going back to our two-step equations. We're getting rid of addition and subtraction first, and then we're getting rid of multiplication division. So I want to get rid of my plus 7 first. Whatever I do to one side, I'm doing to the other. So since I want to get rid of this and make this a 0, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. That cancels out. So now I have a negative 21a equals, and then 91 minus 7, which is an 84. So now that I have just this, we're at a one-step equation now. I can go ahead and get rid of my negative 21 times a. Since that's multiplication, I want to do the opposite, which is division. So divide by negative 21. And then I get a on this side. If this becomes 1a, because the goal when you're multiplying or dividing and canceling that out is to get 1 as your coefficient. So I have 1 as my coefficient now. And I'm going to do 84 divided by negative 2. And 84 divided by, negative 21. Negative 21 is a negative 4. So I would rewrite this as A equals negative 4. Okay? So now number 3, it looks like we got a little bit more going on here. So we're going to make sure we follow our steps. Step 1 is to distribute. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. Start with this negative 5. Pass it out to both parts. Bring down everything. Do not leave anything behind. Negative 5 times 3 is a negative 15m. And then a negative 5 times 10 is a negative 50. Equals 126. All right, so now I can go ahead and step 2 is to combine my like terms. So I have a like term, and then a negative 50. So the negative 50 is going to be left alone. We don't do anything there. We have 4m minus 15m. And 4 minus 15 is negative 11. Minus 50 equals 126. So now I can go ahead and solve my two-step equation. Step 1 is to get rid of addition subtraction. So I have a minus 50. So to do the opposite of that, I'm going to add 50 to both sides to keep this balanced. So I have a negative 11m equals 126 plus 50 is 176. Step 2 is to get rid of this multiplication by doing division. And then I'm left with m equals negative 16. All right, so for number 4, we've got 2 sets of parentheses. So we got to make sure we're distributing twice. So we're going to start with the first one. We have this negative 3. We're going to pass out to both parts. So I have a negative 3 times k, negative 3 times negative 8, which is a positive 24. Now over here, please, please, please don't get tricked by this, okay? This is like saying that you have a negative 1 out front, and you're distributing the negative 1 to both parts. So if I'm distributing the negative 1, that becomes a negative k and a negative 5 equals 23. So now I can go ahead and do step 2, which is to combine my like terms. I'm going to go ahead and combine these. So I have a negative 3 minus 1. That's a negative 4. And then I have 24 minus 5, and that's a positive 19. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that 19. To get rid of this, I'm going to subtract it from both sides because it's the opposite of what is there. Okay, and 23 minus 19 is 4. And then to get rid of this multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. And I get k equals negative 1 when I simplify my answer. All right, so what I want you to do now is you're going to pause the video, try number 5, and then come back and see if you get it right. For number 5, first step is to distribute. You have a negative 6 here, so we're passing that out to both parts. So I have 20 equals 10x minus 12x minus 30. Combine your like terms. So you're going to do 10x minus 12x to get negative 2x. Bring down the 20 minus 30. All right, get rid of the minus 30 by doing the opposite. So I have 50 equals negative 2x. Get rid of the multiplication by dividing, and you get x equals negative 25. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and try a couple more. Same thing, you're going to pause it, try it, and then come back and check it. So pause the video, try number 6. All right, so step 1 is to distribute. So you have 16w minus 8 minus 4w equals negative 116. Combine your like terms. So you have 16 minus 4 is 12. Solve your two-step equation. Get rid of the addition and subtraction first, which will give me negative 108. And then you can go ahead and divide. to get W equals -9. All right, pause the video, try number 7. All right, so don't forget this is a -1. You are passing that out to both parts. You have 11h minus 2h plus 1 this time, because it's a negative times a negative, equals what? 118. Go ahead and combine your like terms. We're going to go ahead and combine. We have 11 minus 2, which is 9, plus 1 equals 118. Then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my plus 1. I have 9h equals 117, and then divide both sides by 9 to get h equals 13. All right, so for number 8, we have a fraction this time, but that's okay. We've worked with fractions before. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start by distributing that fraction to both parts. Remember, when you are multiplying with a fraction, you're taking the tops, multiply those together, take the bottoms, multiply those together. When you have a number like 10, that's the same thing as saying 10 over 1. So we're taking 1/2 times 10 over 1 to get 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And then 1/2 of -2 is -1. Combine your like terms. So I have -25 equals 8x minus 1. Add 1 to both sides. -25 plus 1 is -24 equals 8x. Divide both sides by 8. X equals -3. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try number 9. All right, so for number 9, same idea. We're distributing, but this time it's a -5/2. So I'm going to do 7 and then -5/2 times 8 over 1, -40 over 2, which is -20. So I have minus 20r, and then -5 over 2 times 6, or -6 over 1, plus 30 over 2, which is a positive 15. And then I can go ahead and combine my like terms, our terms, constants. Now I can go ahead and actually add those together. So -20 plus 2 is -18. And then 7 plus 15 is a positive 22. All right, and then we're going to get rid of our addition first. Divide both sides by -18. All right, so for here, put the negative out front. So I have r equals -10 over 18, but I can simplify that. Both of these are divisible by 2. So my final answer is r equals -5/9. I'm going to leave it as a fraction in its simplest terms. All right, so number 10, there's a challenge ahead. So we're going to first make sure that we are simplifying this or translating it into an expression or an equation, whatever it is, and then we're going to go ahead and solve. So I want you to pause it, and I want you to try to translate it. Don't solve it yet, just pause it, translate it, press play when you're ready. All right, so if you have already translated this, which I need you to do, if you haven't, pause this and actually do it. But if you have, great. So we have 5 times the difference of twice a number in 3 decreased by the sum of a number in 8 equals 13. So I know equals 13 is going to be the end part, so I'm just going to put equals 13. All right, so I've got multiple things happening here. I've got 5 times the difference of, that is one of my parentheses keywords, so I know there's going to be parentheses. So 5 times the difference of, so I'm subtracting the difference of twice a number in 3. So twice a number would be 2n. And then minus 3, okay? Decreased by, that's a subtraction, the sum of a number and 8. So since I have the sum, I want to make sure that I'm keeping this in parentheses so that I'm not having the order of operations not work out correctly. Okay, especially with so much happening here. Like if this was just the sum of a number and 8 equals 13, you wouldn't need the parentheses. But since there's so much other content in this problem, you want to make sure you have the parentheses around that too. Okay, so we're decreasing it by the sum, so in parentheses, of the number and 8. So sum means addition. We're taking the number plus 8. If you were able to figure this out, great job. If you missed a little bit of it, it's okay, we got more time to practice. But now we have our setup here, so we're going to go ahead and solve. So step 1 is to distribute. I'm going to distribute to both parts. This is like a -1, remember? So I have 10n minus 15 minus n minus 8 equals 13. Step 2 is to combine our like terms. So we're going to go ahead and combine those. So I have 10 minus 1, which is 9. And then negative 15 minus 8 is negative 23. Equals 13. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and solve this. I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. First step is to get rid of the subtraction. So I'm going to add 23, to both sides. So I'm left with 9n equals 36. And then I can do my division. And I get n equals 4 as my answer.